Welcome. I see a number of attendees have joined the webinar today. I just want to thank you for joining us. My name is Sam Leichling. I'm the City Planning Manager with the Department of City Development. I'm joined today by a few colleagues. I want to introduce them and kind of give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing today. From the planning staff, we have our principal planner, Kristen Connolly. Many of you may have gotten emails from Kristen already inviting you to this event or announcing our verification letter process being opening. Kristen is the primary point of contact for us here in planning in making sure that developers who are pursuing LIHTC awards can get their zoning and planning verification letters. Also joined behind the scenes by Forrest Elliott, who's helping control some of the IT side of this. He's our graduate intern. Maria Prioletta is the city's redevelopment and special projects manager. Many of you know Maria and have worked with her, and she's also joined as our kind of resident expert on everything WHEDA LIHTC related to answer any questions that come up. And then also Amy Turum, who is our real estate services manager, who oversees all city real estate. And to the extent anyone has questions about city real estate and the overlap between those two processes and the WHEDA process, we can do our best to answer. We're going to try to keep this very informal today. It's not like a fancy presentation. We imagine it much more as like a, if we're all sitting around the table in 809 North Broadway and we know people have questions and we want this to be a chance for you to get your questions answered. So you're not going to get a long formal presentation for us, and we're just going to kind of talk through kind of the deadlines, our process, and then the majority of the time will be for any questions you all have. Again, this session is more the resource we wanted to make available for developers. And on that, I just wanted to thank Matt Melendez from WISC. Matt has encouraged us to offer this kind of quick Q&A session to help answer any questions that might be out there, and so that people aren't having to email and call four of us and trying to sort through all the sometimes we acknowledge complicated processes. So Matt, thanks for suggesting this, and thanks for all you guys are doing at WISC to kind of help make an even more streamlined process for our development community to access these key resources. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Kristen Connolly, who will, again, give the bulk of the presentation, which will be pretty short, and then we'll
Right, thank you. Thanks everyone who's attending and just giving us an opportunity to go over our process and procedures so that we can get you your verification letters as requested as promptly as possible. So pardon me, I'm going to escape out of this and just go to our city website, which I think everyone's probably, yep.
I forgot to say one thing, I'm sorry. We're supposed to start every webinar with how people can communicate with us. And if people want to use the chat feature, as Kristen's talking or as any of us are talking, feel free to start putting questions in the question box and we will take those as they come. Or if you have a complicated question that you'd want to ask, you can use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you afterwards for questions. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can unmute and have a dialogue so you can ask, back and forth questions. Absolutely. So I'm sure everybody knows already how to get to our city website off of the planning main page. So if you go to planning city.milwaukee.gov/dcd/planning, the link is just down here and that kind of just hangs out in perpetuity. We did update it to reflect this year's dates and deadlines. And we also have a link to the form that we have online that we ask that you fill out and accompany with the supplemental material that we request as well. This year, we're looking at a deadline of November 11th for you all to submit your form and then the additional information that we request. And our goal then is to get the completed letters back to you by December 4th, so a week before WHEDA's deadline. If we can do it sooner, we certainly will. This year, given that we're all still being directed to work safely from home, we'll just purely be digital, so no need for paper copies, which I'm sure everyone will probably be very happy about. You can just submit everything to our general plan admin at milwaukee.gov address, which I'll add to the website after this so that it's there for everyone to remember. And just to make sure in the form itself that you include the email address to whom you wish you want this to go. This is a fillable form when you download it in Adobe Acrobat, thank goodness. So just make sure that you have the contact information accurately typed out, so either up here, or if you want a different point of contact or additional people, just note it in this field down here as well. So the form, I'm sure most of you have seen in the past. We just ask some basic questions, such as the amount of tax credits that you'll be requesting, whether or not the local alder from the district has been briefed on the project. And the reason we ask that, and just want to let you know as well, is because when we get these submittals in, part of our process is to provide a copy to the local alder so that they're aware of the project as well. So it's always best that they kind of hear from you first, in case you need to have dialogue with them in the future. And then just let us know if you've had any previous requests for requested letters of support for the project. That kind of helps us remember, that there's possibly a letter that we can, build off of and get it to you quicker. If you are resubmitting your request, just let us know specifically what has changed, if anything, from your prior request. And then getting into the bones of the Zoning and Community Revitalization Plan letter, which is what DCD Planning coordinates and puts together for you. Hopefully this will be no for most of you or all of you. Does this project require a zoning change? But I know that a number of people have reached out regarding whether a zoning change would be necessary already. We have a few rezonings in the process to meet the entitlement, to meet the approval deadline before the entitlement. To be able to demonstrate entitlement, sorry. And then just kind of marching through the form, we ask, again, just a brief overview of the project, the zoning designation, number of dwelling units, aldermanic district, and comprehensive plan boundary. So if you have like a scattered site proposal, we do ask that you provide like a table that basically has all of this information in it. And that really expedites our review to kind of spot check rather than have to dig up all this information for every single site. And to get this information, probably the easiest way is My Milwaukee Home. And once you were to put in the address, there's actually a special interest tab where you get basically is what's the zoning, are you in a zoning overlay district, what is the comprehensive plan boundary that you're within? And if there are questions on that, I can always bring up that website and show you an example. Then we just ask for a list of the development team, including some background and experience, any preliminary site plans or elevations that you have, resource or sources and uses of funds statement. I will ask Sam to chime in on this a little bit more with regard to what information we ask and what we provide back in terms of the comprehensive plan that the project is within and whether the comprehensive plan recommendations are consistent with the proposal. But just to back up a minute, I wanted to let you know from a zoning standpoint, when we do the zoning checks for your project so that we can state hopefully with certainty that you're compliant with the zoning, we really just look at the use and the density. So we don't look at setbacks, we don't look at building height, lot coverage, parking. Basically that will be done at the time that you go in for permits by a plan examiner in the development center. What we're concerned about is being able to say with certainty that, multifamily residential or single or two family, whatever it might be, is permitted in your zoning district and that you have enough lot area for the density that you're requesting. So just wanted to be very forthright that we don't do a very, in-depth zoning check by any stretch. And if in the future you're not able to meet any of those zoning parameters that are rattled off, then you'll just need to budget for the time to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals process for, special use or a variance or whatever that might be. So that's really all I have to offer. Again, at the end of the day, we just ask by November 11th, you submit your form and the supplemental information to planadmin@milwaukee.gov. And if you have any questions along the way, you can email that as well. I monitor it and can get back to you very quickly with any answers to your questions. And then we'll do our thorough review from a zoning and comprehensive plan standpoint and turn that letter over to you. And then we also have, like Sam had said, Amy Turum from the real estate section, the manager of real estate, and then also Maria Prioletta, who are far more well-versed in the details of the housing stuff. And Sam, if you want to chime in at all with regard to this, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll just mention one kind of slight difference for those of you who may have gone through this process with us in the past. One minor tweak from last year based on some updates WHEDA has made to the way that they're looking at the community revitalization plan scoring criteria. In the past, with all of our letters, we would include a statement about the city's comprehensive plan and how consistent it is with the proposal, and we've always asked you to give us that information. We will do that again this year, but we're making that optional for developers because the reason for that is, as WHEDA has updated their scoring criteria, it appears from the way that they've designed the QAP and the scoring this year that they're giving the applicant a little bit more discretion as far as what plan they want to use for those scoring purposes. And since it is a 5-point, I believe, scoring criteria, and there are some different thresholds they're looking at, including how recently the plan was adopted, we acknowledge that since some of our area plans are now more than 10 years old, it's possible that you may decide that there's other plans out there that are non-city plans that will allow you to more likely score the full points there. So that's a choice that each applicant can make. And we do ask, if you want to use our city plan for scoring, that's where you would fill out those sections on our verification letter. And then when we give you your zoning letter, we'll also write up the same language we've always given in the past about the fact that this is consistent with the revitalization plan. And we've even run that language by WHEDA in advance, and we believe it's as strong as we can make it to allow Milwaukee developers to score. But again, just with the age of some of our plans, we recognize you may choose to use a different plan, and that's your choice. With that, before we open it up for questions, I guess I do want to ask if either, I guess we can go to Maria first and then Amy. Maria, if there's anything else you want to add. We have about 10 people on the line, and just anything you want kind of they're going to be thinking about as they're going through this part of the process.
No, I would just say, first of all, good luck. We encourage great applications from Milwaukee. But as you're putting your application together, I would just encourage you, if you do have any questions about anything from a policy perspective, or in the future, should you receive credits, city resources, or just overall general housing policy kinds of issues that we look at, I just encourage you to reach out. We're happy to have a one-on-one conversation or exchange of ideas on those types of issues in advance of you submitting your application.
Yep. Thank you, Maria. And then Amy, obviously anyone who's dealt with projects that involve purchasing properties from the city real estate has probably worked with Amy, and anything you want to add as far as city real estate's advice at this part of the process?
Sure. Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for the presentation. I think this will be helpful. I'd really like to note that if people are interested in city-owned real estate, you're going to need a letter of site control to submit to WHEDA with your application. And a letter of site control is not something that we can just go ahead and administratively offer you. We need to go through a process, and that process takes time. And so for this cycle, this December, being now that it's at the end of October, we are at the very last second for the possibility of submitting what we need to submit through the Common Council to get you a letter of site control for most types of properties. So if you haven't talked to city real estate yet, please reach out today. And in the future, when you're going for projects that might include city real estate, feel free to talk to us throughout the year. We're more than happy to answer questions and try to help you put together a package that'll work for you so that Milwaukee can be competitive in the scoring round.
Awesome, thank you, Amy. And I can attest, I get copied on a lot of those emails back and forth that Amy and her team are, very responsive and want to help make this all work. So yeah, I hope people take up her offer to be in touch, same as Maria. So that's our full kind of formal presentation. We know everyone has a lot of Zoom meetings and presentations now, so we wanted to keep this brief and make the most of it, give you the most time possible to answer any questions you might have. So the ways to do that, one would be, again, if you want to put a question in the question and answer box on GoToWebinar, or if you want to use the raise hand feature, we can unmute you so that you can ask the question, which is easy. With this small group, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll do it that way. And if no one called, as we're waiting for questions, Matt, since this was your idea, and as we're waiting for people to kind of get their questions together, maybe if you want to share any kind of questions that you've heard, Matt, from some of the developers you're working with, maybe that'll be a way to get us things kickstarted.
Yeah, I just have two questions. The first one I think is relatively simple. There's a question on here about amount of tax credits being applied for. And as you know, tax credit developers will be tweaking their pro formas and numbers all the way up until the day before an application is due. I guess just a general question is, as some of these elements might change from the point in which they file their request with you, how much do you want to be updated on? Are there particular changes that you need to be updated on? Is something like the number of tax credits applied for? Just a sense of that communication, or is this just kind of a
Yeah.
snapshot? This is what I'm thinking right now.
Okay, Matt, I'm gonna let you take that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I can help on that. I would say from your question, Matt, get as close as to where you think you need to be on the amount of credits. We're trying to get a feel for the amount of requests, the number of credit requests going in from Milwaukee. We understand that's kind of a moving target until the time you finally submit. So unless there's some huge variance, there'd be no reason for you to update us. Now, if any of the elements of the project significantly change from the time that you submit us the information until the time you're applying, that might be something we would want to know about. What would that be? Like significant change in unit or unit configuration, or it was an elderly project, it's not an elderly project, although I can't imagine that would be one of them. But any component of the structure of the project that would be significant. And again, I can't imagine that would happen. It's more of a issue, as Matt had indicated, of just refining your proposal, but you could reach out on those kinds of more substantive changes.
And then another question is, what if I'm a tax credit developer and I've reached out to the local alderperson, but I haven't successfully been able to reach them or brief them on my project? What might you recommend in that circumstance?
So if it's a case you might have been reaching out by phone and you haven't been able to connect to have a conversation, I'd suggest myself, I would just suggest minimally that you shoot them an email and just say, they may, if you have a relationship with them already, obviously they know you. If you don't, talk a little bit about who you are and what your development background is, and tell them that you want to, you're going to be submitting an application for a project in their district, a brief description of the project, and tell them you'd like to discuss it with them in advance of you submitting your proposal, so that at least there's some record also of you having reached out to them and kind of given them the heads up, as Kristen had said earlier, on your project. Because when we get all of these, Kristen and her team will send that information over to the alders. So it's always really good to know, from an alder standpoint, to know that the developer had directly reached out to them about something that's going to be happening in their geography ahead of time.
Okay, Matt, thanks for getting us started. Anyone, I don't see anyone's hand raised in the audience. Maybe we'll give people another second, and then one thing we'll try, just because it is a small enough group, I think, Forrest, maybe it's possible there are no other questions, but is it possible to just unmute everybody also in case people are having trouble with the hand?
Yeah, there it is possible for us to unmute all participants if anybody would like to speak. You, of course, would still be muted until you unmute yourself. But yes, we can do that whenever you want us to, Sam.
Well, let's unmute everyone, and if people have questions, we'll take it that way.
There you go. Everybody, you should be unmuted. You're obviously still muted on your computer, but if you hit the little orange microphone button, that will unmute you and you may speak. Obviously, no pressure if you don't have any questions, of course, but we wanted to open the floor just in case anybody did.
Okay. Well, it looks like people had their questions answered through the presentation, which is great. And for those of you who did decide to join on your lunch hour to hear the presentation, we really do appreciate it, because even if you didn't have questions, we know hopefully by hearing a little bit more about the process, it'll streamline things. Oh, Diane, are you trying to speak? Diane?
It looks like, here we go. I've unmuted Diane. You can speak if you have a question now.
No, I don't. I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, so with that, I guess we will probably wrap up. We just again want to say thank you. I'll echo what Maria said, which is good luck to everybody. You have all of our, I think the planning admin at milwaukee.gov is the best email address for questions about this part of the process. But as Maria and Amy mentioned, you could also reach out to them for questions on real estate and financing side. And yeah, we'll end with, again, a good luck, stay healthy, and please let us know if there's anything we can do to support you as you're pursuing credits. And thank you again, Matt and Lisk, for suggesting this.
Thank you.